Well, g'day and welcome to another episode of The Depot, sponsored by my good mates at AutoSense. Today we're going to continue with our wellness series with today's episode focusing on fatigue in the transport industry. Fatigue is often referred to as the ghost and is a concern with truck drivers spending long hours behind the wheel and often doing shift work which interferes with their sleep cycles. So today we're going to find out more about fatigue and what you need to do to try and manage it. I'll be talking to Rachel Lehen, who is a fatigue management consultant with Fit for Duty. Hey, welcome, Rach. Thank you so much for being a part of an episode of The Depot. Great to see you.
Thanks, Murph. Great to see you too. Thanks for having me.
Now, fatigue management consultant, a hell of a term. Tell us what that means.
Yeah, well, what does that mean? Okay, so a fatigue management consultant. I've actually done a post-grad certificate in fatigue risk management and shift work and helping people to manage their sleep. So, I've certainly spent a long time learning the subject, and essentially what it means is that I help companies and businesses to go beyond just prescriptive work time rules, which currently managing fatigue has sort of, that's really been the main way that companies have kind of tried to manage it, by limiting and putting rules around work time. So
Yep.
as a consultant, I actually help them to go beyond that and look at all of the other factors that are involved when you're managing and putting processes in around fatigue.
Yeah. And obviously, we've spent a fair bit of time together over the last little while at seminars with AutoSense and delivering great messages around this stuff. So, and I've learned a hell of a lot about it. And I know the answer to this next question, but I think it's really interesting to give an insight to those that are listening or watching on how you actually got into this work. And I think it's a great answer and one that I think. Sets the tone and creates that a little bit more of an awareness, and probably also gives a lot of people a connection to exactly the same story that you're about to offer. So tell us how you got into it.
Yeah, thanks, Greg. Yeah, and look, I think it is really well worth explaining how I got into fatigue, because clearly I'm not a commercial driver, but I certainly have a story that hopefully many people resonate with, and really it's about my background as a natural health consultant, and a particular time where I was driving. So the Lower North Island was my territory, and I had to drive, kilometers every single day, every single week to kind of get around and see everyone. So, but I'd had absolutely zero training, in defensive driving, and secondly in managing, my fatigue levels. In fact, I'm sure I never even used the word fatigue, and yet I was in the health industry, and so it wasn't even something that was on my radar. But there was one particular time I was coming home from New Plymouth, and on a Friday, sort of Friday afternoon, so I was already a little bit tired, and I thought, oh crikey, I've still got 5 hours ahead of me to get home. So pulled into the BP and got my coffee, thinking, well, coffee is good, it's supposed to give you wings and keep you awake and alert and all that good stuff. So I thought, well, I'll have my coffee, and any minute now it'll kind of kick in. But however, probably 20 minutes down the road, I was thinking, this coffee's not really doing what I'd hoped. And so I thought, oh, well, I better just crank the stereo up and have a little sing along. And so I did that. Another half an hour down the road, I really noticed that I was really starting to struggle and kind of doing, the knot. Have you ever done that, Greg, where you kind of, well, hopefully not, but, we'd probably all be kidding ourselves if we've never had that experience at least once in our life, where we really start to struggle with remaining focused and that kind of thing. So I thought, oh, okay, what am I going to do next? So I wound the old window down, and I'm pretty sure at one stage I even stuck my head out and to get this big rush of cool air, to try and do everything I could to stop myself from falling asleep. And then actually it gets worse, because I get to a straight piece of road, And I say to myself, I know what I'll do. I will just shut my eyes for a couple of seconds and have a quick sleep. How bad can it possibly go? And I guess I know now what I had was a micro sleep. So when my brain just went, right, that's it, you're too tired, I'm going to shut down now. So I actually sort of veered off the left hand side of the road. Thankfully, there was a rumble strip which actually woke me up, which, if I'd had a guardian system in my vehicle, it would have done the same thing by shaking the seats. But however, lucky there was a rumble strip and it actually woke me up. But in that moment, I thought, crikey, I'm in the health industry. I should know better. I should have had a plan in place for, when I'm tired and driving, and a journey management plan, and, that kind of jazz. And I had nothing in place. So I decided I would start a business in fatigue management and build on my health knowledge, and but focus on sleep and fatigue, which is what I've done since 2008. So that's my journey, and I love it. I love talking to people about the importance fundamentally of getting good sleep, which is kind of the basis for fatigue management.
Um, Off track ever so slightly. I mean, that's a situation where when you had that micro sleep, you know, fate took over on what the outcome was at that moment, right? So,
Mm,
you could have easily not had a rumble strip. You could have easily
mm,
been in a piece of straight road that didn't have that, and then you could have continued off to the left. You could have then woken up and swerved hard to the right to recover from that, and ended up, the
mm,
outcomes that could have possibly happened that didn't are
mm,
what happens to people um, every day in different situations where the fate takes over, and where you are, and,
yeah,
and all the pieces of the puzzle that do conspire at that same time result in injury,
mm,
death, all that kind of stuff. And so, I mean,
yeah.
that would have scared you into,
Oh,
acting, and leading you to where you are now.
yeah, absolutely. And you're right, Greg. I think, and I often say that I think we get through our day on good luck more than good management. And that is why for drivers, whether it's commercially or just in your own private life, you have to have your wits about you. You've got to have, high attention and not be distracted and be as alert as you possibly can, because you know, whether the micro sleep happens to you or whether it's happening to somebody who then is
Yeah,
hurtling towards you, you have to have your wits about you so that you can get out of the way. Um,
yeah,
and look, I was speaking to a fuel tanker driver a few months ago, and she told me that she drove from one end of the Auckland Harbour Bridge to the other and cannot remember doing it. So she was experiencing what we called fatigue tunneling or zoning out, where you just kind of get that tunnel vision and you're almost on this autopilot. Now, for her, she had, good wheel alignment. She's going in a straight line, I guess, and nothing out of the ordinary happened. And I
yeah,
think that's the big take home is that, we can operate, we turn up to work, our eyes are open, we sort of mumble around and it appears that we're awake and all that thing, but are we as alert as we need to be? Not often. So I think we get by on good luck, not good management most of the time.
yeah. That's true. Very much so. So let's just try to understand layman's terms, but scientifically, what is fatigue, and also the difference between fatigue and feeling a bit tired.
Yeah, and that's a really great point to bring up as well, Greg, because although there's a relationship between feeling sleepy and feeling tired and being fatigued, they are all different things. And so, feeling tired at the end of a day, perfectly normal. This is because of the sleep pressure that builds up from the moment you wake up in the morning. So the sleep pressure builds up, and at the end of the day, you're feeling so tired that you go to bed and go to sleep. When you're feeling sleepy, it's normally because you haven't had adequate sleep in the sleep period beforehand. So you'll be feeling quite consciously aware of being sleepy as well, much like you're consciously aware when you're feeling hungry and you go, oh, well, I'll just have something to eat, and that hunger goes away. So same with feeling sleepy during the day. If you could have a nap or, go to bed and have a proper sleep, that sleepiness would go away. But fatigue is basically a state of impairment, or the word that we use to describe a state of impairment that's caused by inadequate and poor quality sleep. So much like we use the word drunk to describe a state of impairment when we've had too many beersies, we use the word fatigue to describe that state of impairment caused by inadequate, poor quality sleep. And it's cumulative. It's not just the result of one bad night's sleep. It's the third, fourth, fifth, sixth, and so on, months and months of just not getting adequate sleep. So fatigue is more than just feeling tired and feeling sleepy, and the biggest impact is on our brain. We're talking about cognitive alertness, not just feeling physically tired, it's our brain. And that's where the risk is associated, because it slows down our reaction times, our performance is impaired, our mood changes, our concentration is reduced, and our distraction goes up, which again, we see that with the Guardian system. We often see preceding some of those fatigue events, high distraction rates. So our brain's busy just looking for stimulation to stop us from falling asleep.
Yeah, well, I mean, great description, and clearly a big difference between it. As you say, that description around poor actual sleep and poor quality of sleep.
Mm.
I think the key word there that gets me out of all that too is the cumulative of that, and how
Mm.
dangerous that is when you just have, you think you're fatigued, have had a poor sleep, and then you have another one on top of it, another one on top of it, another one. It doesn't count, doesn't cancel out the previous one. It just adds on to it all the way through.
Yeah, it absolutely does. And also the timing of sleep is really important. So, the work time rule, you have your mandatory 10 hours between shifts. But what that rule doesn't take into consideration is the timing of that sleep. So from a circadian rhythm perspective. And so, that cumulative sleep loss is often a result of just the timing of the sleep and the quality of it. So if you're getting part of your sleep during waking out, normal waking hours, if you're a night shift worker, for example, then your sleep quality will be poor. And you do that day after day after day. That's where that cumulative effect comes in.
So let's talk about the impacts of fatigue while getting behind the wheel and driving.
Yeah. So remember, I was just saying how being fatigued and being drunk, pretty similar. So we have there's been a lot of research that says the fatigue impairment is very similar to being impaired by alcohol. We know that if you've been awake 17 hours, for example, you have the same impairment level as if you were legally drunk. So I bring that up because it's quite good to think, well, when was the last time that you may have had one or two more drinks than you should have, and then these symptoms and signs will make more sense. So you're more likely to trip over things and bang into things, or slips and trips and falls. So even getting in and out of the vehicle, you might roll your ankle when you're getting out of your truck. So those sorts of injuries are more likely. One of the first things that people will notice in others before you notice it in yourself is probably your mood. So your mood, have you ever been a bit grumpy, Murph?
No.
No.
Ever.
And maybe you just needed a cup of tea and lie down. So
Well, I think there's examples of when I was grumpy that had nothing to do with fatigue as well.
no. No, exactly. But but definitely our mood and our mental health. So there's a relationship again between poor sleep and our mental health. And some of those conditions like Alzheimer's and dementia and things like that are a quite chronic result of inadequate sleep over time, for sure. But in attention to detail, communication skills, your ability to get key messages across changes. Our memory definitely
Yeah.
starts to fail us if we're not getting enough good sleep. So our reaction time, that's really critical. That's really key, especially when you're driving. So so those are some of the main things, that signs and symptoms that you'd look out for.
So, just in your experience too, this is not something that's new. Fatigue's not a new thing. Um, but we have meandered along aimlessly, obviously for a long periods of time without this being a real key sort of focal point around being able to do, when we're just talking the transport industry. We've really overlooked and been very poor in recognizing this for a long period of time, haven't we?
Mm. Mm, mm. Yeah, definitely. And as I said before, I think people have largely relied on the work time rule as a way
Yeah,
to manage fatigue. And of course, it is law, and you have to adhere to that. No doubt about it. And working hours contributes to fatigue, that's for sure. However, it's not the only factor. And I'm often talking about the non-work activities that actually result in work time fatigue. So when you are managing fatigue, you have to consider all of those non-work factors as well as those work factors. So it's what are people doing when they're not at work? Do they have a new baby? Do they have a sleep disorder that they're not managing, or they don't even know about? Are they working a second job? Are they going through a marriage breakup? What is going on outside of work that they're going
yeah.
to bring to work? Because it absolutely, all of those things impact our sleep, which then we bring that fatigue to work every day,
And
potentially.
and in that respect, too, um, we wouldn't be good at wanting to actually acknowledge those things and bring those to work or ring someone to say. I think
Mhm.
we've got to start changing, don't we, in that respect, to become,
Mm.
um, more willing to accept that these are just things that happen to lots of people, or the majority of people, for different
Yeah.
reasons,
Yeah.
on every given day. And it's not just an individual thing that's just happening to you or happening to someone else. It's happening to a lot of
Mhm.
people, but we don't talk about
Mm.
it, or you know um, give that information. So it's kept inside a lot of the times. We've got to actually learn to actually be aware of those stuff ourselves individually. But then there's pressures from work, right? There's pressures from the employer to get the job done too.
Mm.
So it's a busy world that we feel a lot of pressure to consistently, perform.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. It is a juggling act, and it is about meeting operational demands as well. Of course, you've got a business to run, so you do have bottom lines to think about, as well as individuals managing themselves and then being managed.
Mm.
Yeah, it is a complicated one, but I think this is why managing fatigue is really a shared responsibility. That if
Yep.
everyone does their bit and shows up and plays their part, as a combined effort, it absolutely can be done, and I've seen it. So it's when people don't want to talk about it, or they think, God, fatigue's so I don't even know where to start, or I'm not their mother, I can't tuck them in at night time and make sure that they're getting a good night's sleep. And that's the attitude of some people that I've met in the past as well. But I feel like there's a bit of a change, and there is now more acceptance, and certainly all the conversations around mental health and things like that.
Yeah.
It's becoming more accepted, isn't it, for people to be able to talk about it and not feel that it's a sign of weakness. In fact, I think it's the opposite. If you can actually tell people how you're feeling and then be willing to do something about it, I'd say that makes you an incredibly strong person.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Mm.
So top tips. What can you tell us? What's your top thoughts there
Uh,
on managing fatigue?
Well, I believe that sleep is the most important thing we can do in a day. So my top tip is make sure you're getting enough good quality sleep every single night. Prioritize it. Make it the number one thing that you do in a day, is making sure that you get enough good quality sleep. Otherwise, it just makes it really hard to function and do all the other stuff that you want to do, playing your sports, engaging with your friends and your family. If you're a bit under par and a bit tired and can't be bothered, well, then, you don't have any enjoyment from those other things either. So getting your bedroom environment set up for successful sleep is super important as well. Dark, quiet, free of distractions. That's really important. I'd also say don't rely on coffee or caffeinated beverages or sugar to be the thing that gets you through the day. And I meet a lot of people who, they believe that the sugary drinks and the sugary foods and lollies and things like that will keep them awake. And it actually does the opposite. Sugar has the opposite effect in the body. You think it's going to give you all this energy, but it actually switches on a hormone that makes you sleepy. So it does the exact opposite. Be mindful and manage that sugar intake as well, and really just keep it to a minimum, and don't use it as the thing that, to keep you awake. As with coffee, use coffee strategically early in your shift, but not as the only thing to do throughout your shift. On that, I would say if you are feeling sleepy, then napping. That's probably another top tip. If you're feeling sleepy when you drive, pull over, grab a 25-minute power nap. The key is timing it, so don't nap any longer than that. And jump in the passenger seat as well. It's just a good behavior to get into, is take your nap in the passenger seat if you can. So you're not, you're not embedding your brain to go, I can sleep while I'm behind the wheel, basically. So
that is a good one. Yeah, I had not thought of that.
You wouldn't consciously say, hey, I'm going to fall asleep behind the steering wheel, but subconsciously it's amazing, what your brain picks up on.
Yeah, absolutely. Subconscious side of things. I know the power sleep thing it works. Anyone that does do it or has done it, advocate for it, or has tried it, it is 100%. A positive way to get yourself re-energized again. I mean, 20 minutes, 15, 20 minutes. The power that has over how you then respond and move forward is proven. I mean, it's scientifically it works, doesn't it?
It absolutely does. I mean, NASA have done a lot of research around napping, because obviously astronauts don't have the luxury of sleeping for 8 hours in a row. So they have sort of figured out this golden nap, and they talk about 26 minutes, giving you 3 hours of alertness post nap. So if it's good enough for Neil Armstrong, it's good enough for us mere mortals on Earth here.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, a lot of people will say they'll listen to this, or they've been given this information before about, creating a good sleep environment, making sure they're working on getting quality sleep, doing all the right things. Obviously, diet is another one, right? A good diet is really important to obviously have the body in balance and all that kind of thing as well. But so if people go down that path, they're doing all that stuff, but they're still not sleeping well. There's clearly something else potentially there that they do not know exists. And one of those things that a lot of people don't know exists and is a problem that's causing them, the fatigue issues and feeling tired, is sleep apnea. Something that is diagnosed a lot within a lot of people, but also in the transport industry. A lot of drivers are being found and have been diagnosed with having this situation. What do we call it? Is it a sleep apnea?
It's a sleep disorder. Yeah.
Disorder. That's the word. Yeah. So tell us about that.
Yeah, look, something I'm really passionate about, and I've sort of discovered since I started my business, where we would, talk to people about sleep and people snoring and they stop breathing and they feel tired the next day. And we had, in the early days, I had this overwhelming number of people come up and say, that thing you're talking about where you snore and you stop breathing. And I just thought it was normal. I just thought it was because I was a bloke and I'm maybe carrying a bit much weight. Thought it was because I'm a shift worker and I'm getting older or something, and so everybody kind of puts those reasons behind, why they
Yeah.
might not be getting good night's sleep. But in actual fact, sleep apnea, as you rightly say, is very common and prevalent in the commercial driving space. And there is some research that came out of Australia not that long ago that suggested up to 41% of commercial drivers have OSA or obstructive sleep apnea.
41%.
1%, which is a lot.
Staggering.
And yes, really staggering. And what we know in New Zealand, when the hundreds of drivers we've tested over the years, not quite as bad as 41%, but we're not far off, 30, depending on the sector, it could be 35. So, if you think about that, it's a lot of people. And largely this is because we're in a male dominated industry. So males are twice as likely to develop OSA as a female is. Weight has a bearing on it as well. So the more weight that we have around our neck and our belly and things like that, it just puts pressure on your upper respiratory system when you're sleeping. Age, as we get older, our muscle tone changes, so it's not as toned as it is when we're younger, so that by the nature of aging, that changes as well. So sleep apnea is a condition where people stop breathing hundreds of times a night. Well, some people do. Most of us will stop breathing once or twice a night without any kind of health consequence. It's just when it's over a certain number, and we've sort of got thresholds we use in a clinical setting, that we start to go, actually, that number of apneas per night and the relationship between the oxygen desaturation that happens. So every time you stop breathing, your oxygen levels drop and your heart has to work exponentially harder to keep you alive, basically. So left untreated, sleep apnea can have dire consequences on people's health from a cardiac perspective. So more likely to have heart attacks and strokes. We know then when people are tired because of OSA, they're more likely to take on more calories when you gain more weight, and you make poorer food choices. So then we start to see the relationship between type 2 diabetes and people with obstructive sleep apnea. So high blood pressure. So it's not just about, oh, well, I snore. Oh, well, that I don't care. I'm asleep kind of thing. It is actually about longevity. And we know for a fact, we've had physicians come back to us saying, thank goodness that you found this person when you did, because had you not, and had they not got treated, they would have had a shorter life for sure. So, I'm thrilled to pieces that, we're in a position at Fit for Duty to help people. And of course, we work alongside AutoSense, and we use the Guardian seeing machine as a way to identify those individuals that are having repeated microsleeps. And then we do sleep studies, and probably 90% of those individuals that are having repeated microsleeps test positive for obstructive sleep apnea. And then we can treat them. So, and then they say, wow, I've got my life back. You've changed my life. I've had wives ringing me saying, wow, I've got my husband back. Like, it's incredible the difference that it makes in people's lives, just being diagnosed and being treated.
And again, it's just awareness. It's about knowledge. It's around understanding, having, that there is that this thing exists. It's actually spreading the word about, what this actually is, and that it's not normal, and putting a term to it and a name to it, and stuff is just so critically important as well, because there would still be thousands, tens of thousands of people with OSA that don't know that they have got it, that, are living below, a good level of living or life because of OSA.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. It is really, life destroying for those people that can't understand. They might be in bed for 8 or 9 hours, and then they wake up going, oh my God, why am I still so tired? This is really unfair. They're more likely to nod off, and, when they're sitting at the traffic lights for a couple of minutes, or, you come home from work and you sit down on the couch and you want to watch the news, and then next minute you're fast asleep. That's no fun. That's absolutely no fun. So, but if we just relied on our medical system to identify people, we would be in big trouble, because unfortunately, sleep is not always something that can be discussed or remedied in the 10-minute consult that you might get with a GP. There is no blood test that you can do that says you've got sleep apnea. The only way to diagnose it is by having a sleep test. So yeah, and doctors don't do that. They might refer you to a public hospital, to a sleep service, but the waiting times, especially now in the world of COVID, because all of the sleep physicians, also the respiratory physicians, and they're under the pump with COVID. So we're in New Zealand, we are just poorly resourced and poorly funded. So, from a health and safety perspective, that's why working with companies to actually be proactive and screen their drivers, make it part of an annual medical, make it part of your fatigue intervention plan post Guardian event. There's so many ways that you can weave the testing in, and it's really easy. It's a home sleep test. It's just the easiest thing. Why wouldn't you do it?
Yeah, absolutely. Righto. So advice to transport operators on how to manage fatigue within their teams.
Well, I would say, go beyond prescriptive work time rules. Make sure that you are doing more than just the work time logbook rule. Think about all of those other things we've discussed today. Have a robust health monitoring system in place so that you are checking the health, not just from a sleep disorder perspective, but general health and well-being. You really want fit, healthy drivers behind the steering wheel. So that would be something I'd definitely promote. Use the data that you're getting from either your telematic provider, from in-cab cameras, your Guardian seeing machine, anything that's giving you feedback on driver performance and driver behavior is gold. So you're already spending money collecting this data. So use it really wisely and use it to help you to identify those individuals that might be struggling. The businesses we, have had the most success with are the ones that get that, and they use their data and they follow up. And they've invested in the upskilling of their supervisors, because often you can have all this great technology, and then unless you've got supervisors or depot managers who know how to do something with that information and can communicate well to the team about, hey, I've seen a potential issue here, let's do something about it, and be really supportive. And so that comes down to the supervisors and upskilling them as well. Follow up. So all those things.
And it's engaging on that personal level with each and every one of the drivers and everybody that works in the business, no matter what. But those that are out there, it's it is having that those personal relationships and those understandings and encouraging that relationship, that open relationship about that health well-being side of it being such an important thing, and try to obviously get employees, drivers to feel that it's okay to let someone know when there's something that might be part of the problem, as you say, away from work. It's not it's the things that are away from work at home, just normal everyday life stuff that is a contributing factor.
Yeah, absolutely. You've got it.
Yeah. Hey, listen, it is a really interesting side to it. Another piece of science, but which is actually, opened my eyes, as I said earlier, to understand a little bit more about it, and making sense to some things, right? That might not have been so obvious in the past. Absolutely brilliant. Rach, great to see you. Thanks for spending some time and thoughts there on the depot, and I look forward to seeing you soon.
Yeah, awesome. Thanks, Greg. See you later.
Well, there you have it. Some really interesting insights into fatigue and the sleep patterns and sleep and how important it is. There's a lot of stuff there that I was very unaware of before I started actually working with and spending time with Rachel, but it just emphasizes the need for good management when it comes to rest and sleep, and how dangerous and how easy it is to not realize that you are fatigued. So hopefully everyone has got some really good insight and some learnings, and we'll have a good think about how fatigue is potentially impacting you as a driver, and also as an operator, how important it is to keep an eye on it. So thanks to AutoSense as usual for sponsoring the depot. If you're looking for help with your driver training or fatigue and distraction solutions, then pop over to autosense.co.nz and check out what we have on offer. If you like what you've heard today, go ahead, please subscribe to the podcast so you'll get alerts each time a new episode is up. And if you have something you'd like us to talk about, or you'd like to come onto the depot and have a chat with me, then get in touch. Just email thedepot@autosense.co.nz. So that's it for today. Hope you enjoyed the episode, and we will catch you next time.